Our core belief is you need deep domain experts building competitive AI models. So it is not enough to have a commercial off-the-shelf vanilla model for any critical application.
Thousands of companies show up to sell their technology to the U.S. Department of Defense each year. But so few will transition from proof of concept to true production across the valley of death. The select few who do, their stories are rarely told. Until now. I'm Noah Scheinbaum, and this is Crossing the Valley.
Domino Data Lab is an enterprise MLOps platform used extensively by the commercial sector. Domino's technology helps data scientists develop better medicines, grow better crops, adapt risk models, and a whole lot more. Thomas T. Rob Robinson is the COO at Domino. He got his start working at Bridgewater Associates in a variety of technical and operational roles. And he's joined on this program by Joel Meyer, the president of Domino's public sector work. Joel's a former DHS official who spearheaded the department's first AI task force and is now on the Atlantic Council's Commission for AI and Defense. We got to catch up with Joel and T. Rob at the Reagan Defense Forum to talk about Domino's foray into government work, a recent DIU win, how they're using data from unmanned underwater vehicles, and what's next for AI and big data in the federal government. Enjoy. All right, everybody. Welcome back to the Reagan National Defense Forum. We're here with Thomas and Joel from Domino Data Lab. Thomas is the COO. Joel's president of the public sector. Really interesting company, really interesting day. Excited for this conversation. Guys, kick us off. Tell us a little bit about Domino and what it is y'all are doing.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having us. So Domino, we're a software and services technology company. We are building an AI and data science platform. We've historically been used in large enterprises, but have recently expanded to working with more public sector customers and DoD in particular.
Very cool. What does that mean?
What does that mean? So the place where we specialize and what we focus on, the niche that we're in is our core belief is you need deep domain experts building competitive AI models. So it is not enough to have a commercial off-the-shelf vanilla model for any critical application. What we focus on doing is building a platform that makes it easy for those domain experts to acquire the data, build the model, train it, deploy it, govern it, monitor it. And the two things that we focus on, the core metrics we think about are time to value. So how long does it take to get that model into a production scenario? And then trust and governance. So how do you ensure that a critical model is going to adhere to the parameters you have and make appropriate decisions?
Cool. Lots to explore.
Sure.
I want to start by bringing you guys into it individually. And so, Joel, your background in the public sector, in government, DHS, tell us a little bit about some of the roles that you've had and how it informs the work you're doing today.
I feel very fortunate to have worked on some really interesting problems over the course of my career. Started out as a career civil servant at the Department of Homeland Security and served on the White House National Security Council staff, working a lot on counterterrorism issues and other Homeland Security related projects. But at the time, social media was becoming a huge global trend. It was driving geopolitics, geopolitical movements like the Arab Spring. And it made me really eager to learn more and to become part of that industry. And so I ended up spending a number of years in venture-backed AI startups, working with government customers, helping government agencies understand the technology and figure out how to adopt it effectively. I then had the opportunity to go back in, this time as an appointee at the Department of Homeland Security, where I led strategic planning and strategy development efforts there as a deputy assistant secretary. And one of the issues that came to the fore during my time working on strategy there was AI, and particularly in the form of ChatGPT when it was released. I was working on the department strategy, leading reviews, assessments, talking with the department leadership team and our stakeholders, and it kept coming up over and over again. What does this mean? How does it work? Do we need to be using it? How are our adversaries going to be using it? And so I got really into working on AI, worked with Secretary Americas to stand up the department's AI task force. And then when I met Domino Data Lab, they were solving the problems that we had been identifying. And that felt like my mission and next step in my journey. And it's been an amazing time working with T. Rob and the team.
that's kind of a cool tie-in. We'll come to T-Rob in a second, but tell us about what were the problems when you were on the inside. I mean, first off, we have to acknowledge, right, the same challenges you're talking about with social media and the Arab Spring. Like, here we are this week. I mean, Twitter's been blowing, like, as these new constellation of rebel groups maraud through Syria. It's like, here we go again. And the vote on TikTok the other day. So it seems like their divestiture or ban is like, now it seems like ban is maybe the leading option. We'll see. Stay tuned. By the time this airs, who knows? There'll be another chapter in this story. But it's interesting how, I don't know that history repeats itself, but we keep coming back to the same old stories, it seems. When you talk about problems that you were seeing in the department, what are some of those challenges that you were facing on the inside?
It's hard to understand the most effective way to leverage a new technology.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's hard to even understand how it works, how it does the things that it does. I mean, in the early days of ChatGPT, it seemed so miraculous, and in many ways today it still does.
Yeah.
But then when you think about applying it in serious national security missions, in highly regulated industries, you need better understanding of how it's reaching the conclusions it reaches, why it is making the decisions that it makes. And that poses challenges for, I think, for all of us. It's not just the government or DHS where I was, but we were certainly struggling with that and looking for help, looking for solutions. I was working with everybody from our CIO to our head of science and technology, to people who were on the front lines in the missions, to think about what it takes to adopt AI, aside from just having everybody hop on an LLM and give it a shot, give it a whirl. I do think that's a good idea, by the way.
I was going to say, is that a bad idea?
No, I think it's a good idea. I'm not sure, but from our perspective, that wasn't the way that we were going to be able to scale the use of AI to improve our effectiveness in our missions for the American people at DHS. We needed to have a more intentional and technologically informed approach, and that was something that was still in the early days. And frankly, as the technology is progressing so rapidly, I think we're also kind of still in early days in getting this right.
Absolutely. I think it's still a challenge. I know DHS now with the AI core and things like that, I think it's doing really interesting work in saying it's not just about policy, it's not just about regulation, it's also about getting use cases and like just trying the thing. To your point, maybe it's not, maybe it is John Smith at his desk just kind of like playing with Anthropic Claude, or maybe it is, we're going to be a little bit more deliberate about this and look for areas where we think model capabilities are above where humans are.
That's right. And you mentioned the AI core. It's about people too.
Yeah.
And we've heard that a lot this morning here at the Defense Forum. You have to have people in government, and I think this is true across industry. You have to have people who understand it at a more technical level and also at a use case level, at an application level. So I think government agencies are on that journey along with the rest of the enterprises in our country.
Come back to it every single time. Is it technology is still at this point? Technologies are tools that enable people as opposed to replace them most of the time in most of these missions. Speaking of people, let's round out the Domino crew. T-Rob, give us your background. Where do you come at this from?
Yeah, so I'm classically trained, study math and computer science, so technologist at heart, nerd. Another way to say that. I went to work for a finance company, a hedge fund, for about 10 years, building enterprise technology. And so, learned the basics of what's required to build systems that support high-stake decisions, if you will, with respect to trading financial markets and what's required there. I joined Domino about 8.5 years ago. Have had a variety of different roles in my time at Domino, but most recently have been focused on building our go-to-market and particularly how we take our product and services to the market. So
8.5 years, and the company is how old now at this point?
About 9.5, 10 years.
Okay, so you're pretty early in.
Very early in. Yep.
What and one of the things that we've talked about is like when you guys initially opened up shop.
Yeah.
Day one focus area was not going at necessarily DoD or DHS.
No, not at all.
Right?
Not at all.
Commercial first.
We were commercial first, and really sort of started in sort of a classic developer tool sense, and in fact, it was a swipe a credit card type product. Yeah. But what we realized
purpose fit for government.
Right, exactly. What we realized very quickly was we got a lot of support in large enterprises, and what we brought was that balance of speed and governance, and that's really been our core mission. And I think what's happened in the intervening period, we've been the benefactors of quite a large uptick in data science and AI. I think when we started, not everybody knew what data science was, and so sometimes we were explaining that. And at this point, if you don't have data science in the core of your business, you're no longer competitive, and that's been true for, 3 or 4 years at least. I think the advent of the new wave of Gen AI has brought even more intense focus to it. So we've benefited quite significantly from that rising tide of technology.
Absolutely. What were some of the early use cases in industry? Like, what were sort of the problems that you were solving for industry that helped you build some traction?
Yeah. So, we've always focused on companies who have models at the core of their business. So I said before, we work with domain experts. Yep. So if you think about models that are competitive advantage, operational efficiency, new product development. So this is not, again, a vanilla type situation. This is actually competitive IT, competitive advantage. And the industries where we saw a lot of uptake were pharmaceutical, financial services, insurance, and to some degree, advanced manufacturing, think self-driving cars and that sort of thing.
It's a lot of industries.
It's a lot of industries, but there's a lot of core competency in those. They're often regulated. They have a lot on the line, quite a bit of risk. They hire these deep domain experts, scientists, PhDs, and they have the weight of a complex enterprise IT environment that's multinational, that has security policies and requires sort of special care and attention.
Yeah.
Much like the integration challenge that the DoD has.
There it is. There's that segue.
Yeah.
Well, before we dive into DoD, and we will absolutely get there, early days, like, because 8 or 9 years ago, right? Yeah. I mean, Gen AI as a category has been in the public consciousness for about a year and a half, maybe two, if we're being generous. Yep. Right, but you're talking about businesses that used data as a competitive advantage. I mean, it was big data for a while. It was ML for a while.
Yep.
What were actually the kinds of processes that these companies were doing? Make it especially for a non-technical listener.
Yeah. Well, maybe I'll say two things. I'll say
Sure.
I'll say a bit about some of the technology and some of the use cases and how they interplay. So, I mean, the AI revolution is sort of a next step in what's been going on for a really long time.
Yep.
So we used to have statistics, and then we had operations research, and then we had data science, and then we had machine learning, and we had deep learning, and we've, the Gen AI is yet another tool in the toolbox. And when we think about the problem sets our customers solve, we want to bring all that to bear, because the right technology for the job is not always the newest and flashiest technology. We have a lot of customers who swear by having a linear regression, which is a very simple statistical measure, rather than some sophisticated computer vision or Gen AI system. And those can be sort of at the core of what they do. But in terms of use cases and specific things that our customers do, in pharma, we have a lot of folks that are doing research and development, developing new diagnostic tools. So imagine using computer vision on whole cell slide imagery. So you take shavings of tissue and you identify tumors through computer vision. That takes petabytes of data and processing, lots of tagged data sets. And you're essentially building a tool that at some point is going to be FDA approved, and so needs to adhere to GXP practices for machine learning. So, that in one use case, building a new product, hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars of value for a company, FDA regulated, like that is our sweet spot.
Yeah.
That's the sort of thing.
Okay. No, thanks for making that. That makes it very clear. Mm-hmm. When you guys made the decision to say, hey, federal market, defense market, something we should think about.
Yep. Was
that a push or was that a pull? Was there people reaching out and being like, hey, Domino Data Lab, you guys are doing exactly what we need? Or did you guys say, hey, look, it's time to diversify, it's time to enter?
It was a push. I'd say, I don't know. It's all a mix. I don't think there was a...
World's not black or white. We're shades of gray.
There was not a watershed moment that was like, oh, I can show you the email of the poll that we got. What I would say is we got traction with some large defense contractors and inadvertently some federal civilian work with a few agencies, and we basically decided, hey, we think our technology can be a dual use technology. Like, we think the problems that commercial organizations are dealing with are going to be the same problems in the government, and we think we're a good fit. And that is what led us to, make a specific investment and specific development of a public sector team, including hiring and bringing on Joel.
Yeah. So, Joel, when you came into this story, you had known of Domino. You had seen some of the work they had done. What was kind of the maturity of the federal go-to-market motion as you evaluated it? Like, what was a couple contracts, SIBR type stuff? Where were they at?
It was pretty organic, I think is how I would describe it.
Euphemism, I love it.
No, I mean that in the sense that Domino's got a phenomenal team, right? We have phenomenal members. Even as we're still in the process of growing our public sector team, we just have an incredibly talented group of folks who were doing a great job of identifying opportunities and responding to inbound, and then ensuring that customers were successful once they got up and running. It was a handful. It wasn't a full-fledged mature business yet, but that's part of the fun, right? That's part of the challenge, part of the journey that we're on. We had already earned a production OTA with DIU, and so for me, when I started talking with T-Rob and learning more about the business, to me that is one of the arguably the most exciting path for a venture-backed technology company bringing best-in-class commercial solutions into DoD to be on. I'd worked with with DIU earlier in my career as well. Have the highest regard for them and the people there, and so I was really excited to see what we could do with that. And the truth is, I'm a little over a year in now. We're very much still on that journey. DIU has continued to be a phenomenal partner, and we're really excited about the opportunities that are already in flight and the ones that we see on the horizon.
Absolutely. So I love the DIU tie-in. Part of what we want to do on this show is kind of make available to people the different pathways that there are to walk into the front door of the federal government. And so would love for you to talk a little bit about what was that DIU solicitation? What was the problem they were trying to solve? And we can walk through the process a little bit as well.
Yeah, great. And I think this is a great example of something that T-Rob was mentioning earlier on letting the use case drive the type of technology and the type of AI that you might be looking for. And in this case, the use case was pretty specified. It was the Navy looking for a best-in-class MLOps pipeline to accelerate their development and retraining of computer vision models to deploy on uncrewed undersea vehicles, or UUVs, to identify objects undersea, and particularly with a focus on detecting mines, counter mine detection.
Yeah. Wow. So, I mean, no, that really, I think makes really clear when you talk about niche areas with high degrees, it's not just an MLOps pipeline, like you're specifically, can this be deployed undersea, what do you say, unmanned undersea?
Yeah, UUVs.
Yeah. UUVs, there you go. And specifically for things like mine detection. So you have the use case defined almost at every parameter. It's quite narrow and specific.
It's quite specific and niche, as you say, but also extremely strategic, right? When you think about the fact that we're going to need to be operating in the undersea environment in a number of potential contingencies, we need to be able to operate more autonomously. We want to keep our troops, our sailors safe. We want to keep them out of harm's way.
Absolutely.
In every opportunity we can, any way we can apply technology to do that, we have to be leaning forward and being aggressive. And so when we saw this opportunity, we felt like it was tailor-made for the technology that we had been developing with our commercial customers. And so they released a CSO, Commercial Solutions Offering, their main way of doing business. And we submitted. We said, hey, we think we've got something here that really answers the mail. And fortunately, they agreed, and we were part of a team that was selected to go in and work with the MO team, who are just phenomenal innovators and really champions of doing things differently and using non-traditional avenues, which, you hear that in every kind of disruption and innovation story, right? You have to have a champion who is determined and mission-driven to get this done, because it's not always easy doing things in a non-traditional way.
When you guys submitted, sorry to interrupt, when you guys submitted, had you spoken to anyone at DIU or at the user group, or was this really a cold submission?
I think there had been a couple of initial get-to-know-you discussions, but there had not really been any strong kind of contact there previously.
Yeah, I mean, this is an interesting one, right? Because the traditional kind of the heterodox around business development in the federal government is if you're not shaping the requirement, if you're not kind of involved in that development process, you're behind the eight ball. Somebody who has. I think DIU offers a slightly different path there, which is the requirement might be really well defined, but they genuinely want to know if there are other technologies that may not be in the field of vision that could meet that intent. And so I think this is a really good example of, hey, you guys were not necessarily a government contractor at that point, had not necessarily like done business with the federal government, but were able to demonstrate with a high degree of rigor your capabilities in the commercial sphere in a way that lent trust and credibility to an application.
And that's part of it too, right? That you don't have to show up to the table with pages and pages of federal past performance, right? They're looking for the technology. And, we certainly speak from firsthand experience with the DIU AI team that they're phenomenal, right? And they have great technical expertise. You'd have to ask them, but my guess is when they took a look at what we were offering, right, I think the value proposition was clear, and they have a process where you can turn that into a contract, which is doesn't sound like a miraculous thing, but in the world of working with the federal government and DoD is a miraculous thing and makes a huge difference.
And in the world of being a venture-backed startup, where the revenue and continuity is important. So,
absolutely. So talk us through that process. So you get this, the CSO comes out from DIU, you guys submit this bid. What happens next?
So I mean, we were able to have some further discussions with them, answer additional, provide additional information on the capability, and then we were told that had been selected and that they wanted to contract with us. Initially, it was a prototype, right, on an OTA, right, other transaction authority, and so it was relatively small scale, right. But it was a open door, right? It was an opportunity to get in and do work, right? And to show our capability, to test it. And the truth is, before you get in there and test it, even we don't necessarily fully know how exactly it's going to go.
Yep.
I think we knew that we were committed to working with the government to figure it out, right? You have to have that commitment. If you don't show up saying, we're going to be flexible, we're going to accept that there are maybe going to be some requirements coming our way that we don't necessarily see on the commercial side, then that's going to be a tough win. But if you do show up ready, they want to work with you. They want to figure out how to make it work, and that's what we did.
When you all, when you say you were accepted and it was fairly small scale, can you give us some sense of what that scale looked like? Was this one deployment on one vessel? Was it like one unit? How should we think about what small scale looks like versus something like a phase one SIBR that's maybe like, you get to talk to some customers?
Yeah, no, it was more than that, right? So we were able to deploy into an environment like a prototype.
Operational software.
Yep, operational software, but like a testing environment, essentially, for them to kick the tires. And then, as I mentioned, we were also, part of what's exciting about this project for us is that we work with several partners to bring the tailored capabilities that they're looking for in this MLOps pipeline, and we are able to knit it all together in Domino's platform. And so that was part of it too, is saying, we hadn't worked with those partners specifically in the past. Let's all work together. How do we engineer our solutions to make it easiest on the government users? So that we can deliver results to them. And that was a part of the journey as well.
And those partners, you guys built a team to go to market together, or the government said, hey, these are the folks you need to integrate?
It's amazing. It was largely driven by DIU.
So the government said, hey, this is it. You guys are the 5. Now go make magic.
That's right.
That's cool. Yeah, we've seen some of that. There's a little bit of kind of like Project Maven twinkles in there. And then there's others where, it's historically, it's come to market with a full end-to-end solution and all the pieces. Right?
Well, and it's interesting you bring that up. I mean, I think that is the traditional path, right? Is there's a very detailed spec, long list of requirements that no one company, no matter how large, can fulfill. And so you build a team of partners and you come to the table. And this was pretty different. And, I would say different types of procurements need different processes. I will say this has been pretty successful for what the Navy needed in this case.
That's great.
I'll also say there's integration from day one, right? Integration across a lot of different systems and technologies. And that's critical rather than an isolated, we did an experiment in a box and like it worked great, but like now what does that actually mean to go really deploy it, right?
Yeah. No, sorry. I think there's the saying of like nothing's real unless it's in prod, and integration is a huge portion of that, right? So you guys go out there, you bring these 5 folks together, you stitch it together, you're getting user feedback, you're got hands-on. what's the next step in kind of the DIU maturation journey? What happens at that point?
Yeah. So working with the team at Project Ammo, we were asked to refine the deployment, to work with the data scientists there, give them training on how to use the platform, continually work out the kinks, make it work faster, integrate a new tool, new data storage that they were starting to use. Essentially, just kind of refining and helping it to be running at a level that could approach deployment and production level effectiveness. And that was a process that took many months. We ended up being able to be deployed in multiple exercises that they went to. So they actually put it to the test in an exercise environment, which was a huge milestone for the program. And all of that work eventually led up to their decision to award us a success memo. And this is something that, with DIU, when they award a production OTA, that's sort of what you're aiming for. You're wanting a service, in our case, the Navy, to say that we have tested this prototype and it works. It is successful. It meets our requirements and it works. And that is a huge threshold because now, in this case, for building and integrating an MLOps pipeline, Domino is deemed to know how to do that, to be able to deliver that, right? And having that, one, it's portable. But two, and this is kind of previewing the getting towards the end of the journey here, it enables a production contract, which is kind of in the end, when you talk about crossing the valley, you are looking to get onto a production contract with a service. And all that prototyping, all that the exercises all led up to our opportunity to do that.
Yeah. When you think about the value of that success memo and how it's seen across the defense enterprise, DoD and beyond, was that something that resonated with end users and customers? Was it a universal currency, or was that something where it was kind of like understood by a few but maybe not all? How did it translate?
I think I would phrase it more that the use case itself is more powerful, how we were able to impact the mission.
Piece of paper is less important than
the story. I'm not sure that I've been in a lot of meetings where people are like, well, can we see that success memo? Tell me more about that success memo, right? Yeah. They're saying, tell me about the AI, tell me about the work. What was the problem? How did you solve it? Is that analogous to my problem?
Yeah. It shortens the next step, which is if they decide the technology makes sense, then it makes it easier to get because it's been validated, right. but it's less about that validation. Who should believe that, relative to their use case? Like that's what you want to think about first.
Yeah. So how about that next step on the journey, that production contract? Where are we at there?
Well, I mean, amazing news. We received a production contract from the Navy. Now, it's important to note that not all production contracts are made equal. Not all funding levels are made equal. Yeah. And so we're still very much on the journey. I think we've reached a critical milestone, an important waypoint in our ability to support the mission. We're extraordinarily proud of that. But there's a lot more work to do. You want to be in a place where you're on contracts that are sustainable over time. You want to be palmed in the DoD budget. You want to be funded in a sustainable way. Obviously, that's important for us as a venture-backed company that needs to show financial results. I would add it's also important for the mission. If they don't have assurance that the capability is going to be funded and available to them, how much can they really rely on it? How much can they plan around it? And so we view ourselves as partners, really, with the team at the Navy and Project Ammo in trying to get them to that certainty. It's a win-win scenario, which is what you want to be. And I think that sort of goes to the value of the DIU process, that it puts us and the DoD customer on the same page with the same incentives. So it's a win-win scenario. I think that's good for the mission. It's good for industry. And it's good for the nation.
Absolutely. Very well said. Congratulations. That is a big milestone. IDIQ or what's the vehicle there?
So we're not sure. We're not sure if it'll be an IDIQ as the next step. But it could be a production contract and then funding levels. Obviously, we're sort of in a CR right now. New administration coming in, new Congress coming in. We're keeping an eye on that very closely. We've heard a lot of companies this morning actually just talking about that budget process.
And I'd say furthermore, it was heartening to hear Honorable Heidi Shue talk about the importance of giving that continuity, and even putting maybe a little pressure on one of her co-panelists from the Congress about the need to do that.
That's right. And I heard the Indo-Pacific Command Commander Admiral Praparo talking about one of the most important things that he needs is appropriations, like no more continuing resolutions. And he has his reasons for saying that are kind of paramount. But certainly, as a venture-backed company, we see things very similarly. The more our customers have certainty about what their funding level is, the more they can send that signal to industry, the better we can plan and invest in innovation and building capabilities and teams that can successfully support them.
Absolutely. I'm a big believer that fundamentally humans want some amount of predictability, if not certainty, some amount of predictability.
Yep.
And our political system is not exactly aligned to that, right?
That's right.
But, we can control what we can control.
That's right.
And everything else is on the margins. So I appreciate you walking through that journey. And, as you all have obviously been walking this line in DoD, you've gotten through this kind of first milestone. So as you're building out, Joel, for you, the federal team, and then T-Rob, as you're still growing, you're looking at the business as a whole. What role does government play in kind of the broader strategy? Is this something where you guys are going all in on one? Is it going to continue to be a mix? Like, what does it unlock for you on the commercial side?
Well, I would say we're going to continue to be a commercial-based company as
Commercial
well,
first,
and commercial first, but we would say the government is an equal vertical in the other verticals that we serve, and we think maintaining that is obviously important for the structure and revenue of the business, but also important for the lessons learned. Like, there's a reason the DoD wants dual-use technology, and us continuing to learn from industry and do what we did, which is bring the technology we built to the DoD. That needs to continue. And so, obviously, as Joel said, there are specific edge cases and unique things. I don't think we have any other customers who have underwater vehicles. There's some interesting things there.
That's
not on the commercial.
There's a bunch of companies here though that have underwater vehicles.
Yeah.
Very cool. So, let's bring it to kind of present day, and as you guys start thinking about what's next, being here, policymakers, congressional leaders, fellow kind of industry participants, what are you hearing? What's kind of exciting to you? And what think about it in terms of like, what are the tailwinds that are giving you lift in this business, and then what are the rocks you're still trying to scramble?
Yeah, I mean, well, one thing that I would say, we think about, we have a use case in the Navy that's particular, and there are adjacent use cases that we think we can adopt in a similar sort of thing. And then there are the other domains. And clearly, autonomy across multiple domains is top of mind for everybody.
Not going anywhere.
And AI needs to be a key part of that autonomy. And so, that's one thing that's an exciting tailwind for us, is to think about the ability to take, MLOps at some level, a process-oriented technology that's actually agnostic of what the particular model is, and be able to deploy that across multiple use cases, multiple domains.
Yeah.
So that's a great tailwind.
Multi domains, definitely kind of part of the future. Joel, what's like the message as you meet with policymakers here? What do you want them to know, whether it's about Domino or just the industry writ large? What's the message you're carrying forward?
AI is going to be transformational for military capabilities, and really for all agencies, as we were looking at DHS and a number of our other customers as well. And as you think about military strategy and for the strategy, to defend our national interests, AI has to be increasingly at the core of that as the technology matures. I think it's easy to kind of sit here today and say, oh, well, the LLMs, the chatbots, they still hallucinate sometimes, so how can we rely on them? It's like, okay, one, they can still do a lot of things, but two, it's changing so fast, right? And I think when you're thinking about how do we potentially deter and then, if necessary, prevail in a conflict with a near-peer adversary, you have to start preparing now. You have to start investing now. And you have to start exercising and training now with the technology and the approaches that will give you a chance to prevail if that scenario arises. And AI is at the core of that. So that is our motivation at Domino, on the Domino public sector team. We're really proud to be supporting that mission.
I'm going to pick up on something you said real quick because it's such a soapbox thing for me. Is the hallucination point is such a good one, where it's like people. I think we need to be really precise, and you guys have spoken about this. I mean, what you do right at its core is like, for what purpose, for what niche, for what mission, and LLM is not an LLM is not an LLM. And if you're talking about hallucination, well, if you want a model that's going to index towards creativity, you're always going to get some stuff doesn't make sense.
Yep.
What is the mission we're actually talking about here? Perplexity does not hallucinate. Why? Because it's trained a different way. We're talking about a different type of model. So I think this idea, we see it a lot, especially in the sciences right now, is there's a little bit of a skepticism from perhaps some of the, I don't want to call it the old guard, but people who are, hoping and incentivized to believe like, hey, some things are immutable truths and my kind of expertise here is differentiated and can't be disrupted. The reality is, it doesn't mean that we should expect everything to be totally different, but there's a high likelihood that everybody's going to find themselves in a different operating environment in the years ahead. So I think approaching it from a place of opportunity as opposed from a place of naysaying is probably worthwhile.
That's our message.
I'm glad we're on the same page there.
Indeed.
Guys, what's in the next couple of years? What should we be looking for from Domino?
Yeah. So one of the things that's top of mind for us is governance. Just as we're talking about, there's going to be fundamental changes, but at the end of the day, trust is crucial in models. And if you don't have that trust, forget who is ever procuring and buying the systems. The people using the systems need to have the trust, and so that's fundamentally part of the development scope. And so we're building tools that help make sure those models are built and developed in a trustworthy way. On top of that, the complexity of these systems is going to get greater and greater. So we're thinking ahead to AI architectures, agentic architectures, and building tools that allow for more sophisticated multimodal models to be built.
Very exciting stuff. Appreciate you guys taking some time out of a busy day to come spend it with us. If folks are interested in what you're doing, they want to follow along on the Domino mission, or maybe they even want to think about career opportunities, where should they go?
Domino.ai.
Domino.ai. All right, gentlemen, thanks for being here. We're wishing you the best of luck, and we'll see you out there.
Thank
you so much.